What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the Adventure Outpost, your hub for all things movie related. Another weekend has come and gone, and it is once again time for us to talk those juicy box office numbers. It was a spectacular weekend here at the box office. It was the much needed kickstart that we needed here in the month of February to just really propel us into 2023. It has been touch and go here in January and the beginning of February, but it is safe to say that we have finally hit the big time. That's right, we finally got our first $100 million weekend from just one movie in the top 10. Looking here at the chart, we managed to have a plus 188.6% increase over last week. We took in $135 million in the top 10 this week, and that was thanks to a big, huge boost from one particular Ant-Man that we will be talking about shortly. We're going to waste no time because we have so much shit to get through and all of this stuff. We've got a couple of new charts that we're going to look into, and obviously we're going to have to go through our 3-day totals and our 4-day totals. It was a holiday weekend this past weekend. We had President's Day. Today, as of me filming this video, it is still President's Day. So we had a 4-day weekend. I mostly tend to stick to 3 days. I don't really care too much about holiday because we don't really, we'll look at them, but we really just like to look at the 3-day, but I still bring them up just so that we can look and see how it's doing. But the 3-day weekend is the big bread and butter that we like to take a look at. And we're going to dive into all that good stuff now and just see how much of a boost Ant-Man was able to give us here at the box office. So as always, let's go to the charts. Taking a look here for the weekend of February 17th to February 19th, it should surprise nobody that the number one movie for the weekend was the new MCU movie. I think this is the 31st Marvel movie now to come out, number 31, but however many one it's been, it is now another fucking record of this movie. This franchise just continues to have number one debuts. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, the latest in the MCU movies to debut at number one. It debuts in the top spot with $104 million off of a $200 million budget. So it still has a bit of a ways to make back its budget, but I think it's safe to say that along with every other Marvel movie, it's going to make back its budget and make some money. The question will be from this is, what are the legs going to be? Marvel always has a spectacular open. It always does well whatever its openings are, even if it's on a lower side like this with Ant-Man, who's not really as big of a primetime player as some of the other Marvel entries. They always manage to have very spectacular opening weekends, but Marvel has had a very troubling trend lately in its second week drop-offs. The second week drop-offs have been fucking disgustingly big since Endgame, and I'm wondering now, the curious thing is going to be watching this to see next week and to see just how much of a holdover Ant-Man is going to have going forward. It had some, tough critic reviews, had a solid audience score there, but it's been very hit or miss. It was not as crazy as I thought it was going to be at my theater. It did all right, didn't do wildly crazy. Of course, at my theater, I don't have any Prime or Dolby or IMAX or anything like that. And with movies like this, you tend to get people that want to go and see it in the bigger formats. So obviously, my theater is not going to be one of those ones. It's not going to be their first choice to go to, but we did all right, but not as crazy as we've done for other ones. It was a very mild weekend here. I mean, it was still busy, but it was still mild compared to what we've seen from some other ones. So it's going to be interesting to see what that second week drop off is. In second place, in its 10th week, dropping only 15.2%. That is fucking incredible for its 10th week. It's still Avatar: The Way of Water, still takes in $6 million to bring its total domestic haul to $657 million off of a $460 million budget. We've talked about this movie ad nauseum. We'll talk more about it later, so we won't go too much into it now, but it is just disgustingly insane how well this movie continues to do. In third place is Magic Mike's Last Dance in its second week, dropping 35%, taking in $5.4 million to bring its total domestic haul to almost $18 million off of a $45 million budget. This movie still has a bit of a ways to make any type of impression. I don't know. I'm wondering if it's going to end up becoming the first box office bomb of 2023. We're going to have to keep watching to see along, but second week, and that's the kind of totals it's bringing in. It does not leave a lot to be desired, and the box office is going to get very conflicted in a few, with every week going forward. It's going to be tougher and tougher to make money because more and more movies just come out rapid fire after each other, so you need to make your money up front. and I think Magic Mike might end up becoming one of the first box office bombs of 2023. We're going to keep watching. We're going to see. We'll see if it's able to bridge its gap. I wonder if worldwide it might not be so bad. It might make this budget back, so it won't be so terrible. But at least here on the domestic front, it is not looking good for Magic Mike. In fourth place, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, much like Avatar, is just fucking chugging along, has spectacular legs. In its ninth week, drops only 5.7%. That is fucking beautiful right there. It takes in $5.2 million to bring its total domestic haul to $166 million off of a $90 million budget. This movie, much like Avatar, just has been dominating the winter, has wondrous legs, and it just continues to add on to that tally and just make it a resounding success. And rounding out the top five, we have Knock at the Cabin in its third week, dropping 28.1%, taking in $3.9 million to bring its total domestic haul to $30 million off of a $20 million budget. This movie is going to end up being a little bit of a winner here for M. Night Shyamalan. The thing that he does smartly is he makes movies affordable. He's making affordable, cheap movies that even if they're not going to make it a spectacular budget back, they're at least going to break even. They're at least going to make a little bit of change. Knock at the Cabin here is going to be the latest in a long run of money-making hits for M. Night Shyamalan. We look here on the back five. In sixth place, we've got 80 for Brady in its third week, dropping 37.9%. It takes in $3.6 million to bring its total domestic haul to $32 million off of a $28 million budget. Much like Knock at the Cabin, this is going to end up being a little modest hit for Paramount. In seventh place is the re-release of Titanic in its second week, dropping 65.9%. Dear God, if this was the original release, that would be fucking cause for panic. Thankfully, though, it is just one of its many re-releases here. It brings in $2.2 million to bring its total domestic haul to $12 million off of a $200 million budget. Titanic, one of the highest grossing movies of all time, so there's really not much more to talk about here. This is just continuing to add to its totals. I added to its total. I went and saw it yesterday. I have to. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. How can I not go see it if it's on the big screen again? And it's spectacular. James Cameron knows how to utilize the 3D format. He might be the only person that I trust to put a movie in 3D. I normally fucking hate 3D, but I loved this movie in 3D. I thought it looked gorgeous and it was just spectacularly amazing. Now give me that 4K transfer on physical media release, please, James. Give it to me now. In eighth place, debuting. You never want to debut outside of the top five. You don't really want to debut anywhere outside of the top five other than number one. But here we are in eighth place is the movie Marlowe, a Liam Neeson whodunit movie, dropping here at number 8. It takes in $1.9 million off of a budget that they don't want to disclose to us because we'd probably laugh in their face. In ninth place is the movie Missing, still hanging around the top 10. In its fifth week, drops 32.4%. Takes in $1.7 million to bring its total domestic haul to $29 million off of a $7 million budget. That is a big win to kick off the year for Sony. And rounding us out in the top 10 is A Man Called Otto, still holding strong in the top 10 in its 8th week, dropping 40.2%. It takes in $1.5 million to bring its total domestic haul to $60 million off of a $50 million budget. So much like 80 for Brady, much like Knock at the Cabin, it is going to be a modest size hit. It is nice to see these modest size movies, these mid-budget movies making a return to theaters. They kind of all but disappeared lately. You weren't seeing many of them. It is lovely to see that some of these are coming back to theaters, that they're doing business back in theaters, that it's showing that this model, when done right, can be very successful. I love me some mid-budget movies. I think they always end up being, even if they're not going to be the greatest things of all time, they are healthy for the cinema. They are nice and viable for the cinema. So it's nice to see at least 3 of them right here, right now in the top 10. But it was a holiday weekend this weekend. We took a look there at the 3-day. Now we're going to roll in one more. We're going to take a look at the 4-day weekend here and take a look at just how well it did today for President's Day weekend. Let's see just what the totals were off of the 4-day weekend. We'll go through it very quickly right now. Taking a look here at the chart, we have now, if we went 135 for the 3-day weekend, we added in one more day and brought us up to 159 million from the top 10. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is still in first place with $120 million, so managed to add another 20 million in one day to its total. So this movie is well on its way to being a hit machine. Avatar: The Way of Water still in second place. It took in 7.8, almost $8 million with the extra day. The first switch that we have, actually the only switch here in the top 10, Magic Mike and Puss in Boots switch places if we add in a fourth day. Puss in Boots takes third, bringing in just about the same amount of money of Avatar, The Way of Water. It brings in almost $8 million itself. So just absolutely stellar from these two movies. It's just what they've been able to do this long after their release date. Magic Mike has to settle for fourth place, and it takes in $6.2 million. Knock at the Cabin still in fifth, and it took in $4.5 million. We take a look at the back five. 80 for Brady, still in sixth place with $4.5 million. Titanic makes almost $3 billion in seventh place. Marlowe still hangs out, debuting in eighth with $2.1 million. Missing holds strong in ninth with $2 million. And A Man Called Otto continues to bring up the rear with $1.8 million. Now, as always, we like to take a look at our worldwide and domestic for the years. We're still taking a look at 2022 simply because Avatar: The Way of Water is still crushing. It's still making money, so we have to chart along and we got to see where this bad boy is going to end up. So we take a look quickly at the top 10 worldwide for 2022. We don't have to take a long time in there because we're literally just looking at what Avatar's doing. And it's not a surprise because Avatar, we know, we'll look here at the chart, is in first place. Avatar has been the #1 movie worldwide for a while now. It absolutely destroyed all the other movies, swept way past Top Gun in second place. Top Gun right there in second place with 1.4. Avatar: The Way of Water almost a fucking $1 billion ahead of it. It's insane. Avatar: The Way of Water right now stands at $2.2 billion and climbing. It continues to make just absolutely disgusting amounts of money. And then we take a look at our worldwide for 2023, and it is nice to see once again a U.S. movie slowly rising up the ranks here in the worldwide charts. We take a look here. If we look here at the top 10 worldwide, still in first place is Full River Red with $649 million. The Wandering Earth 2 is in second still with $564. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania debuts on the top 10 worldwide in third place with $225 million. Not bad for a first weekend for the Ant-Man series. Still bringing up the rear after that, Boonie Bear is still hanging strong there in the fourth spot with 205. Megan still hanging out in the top 5 with 170. Hidden Blade in 6th with 132. Deep Sea in 7th with 121. Pathan in 8th with 120. Cheparashka, which I continue to probably pronounce wrong every time we talk about it, in 9th with 89. And 500 Miles brings up 10th with 57. We knocked Plane out of the top 10. You had your time playing. I hope you enjoyed it. You're out of here. You'll get another shot when your sequel Ship comes out, and we'll see how well that does. And then we take a look at our domestic on the front. We're going to still look here at our top 10 domestic for 2022 because while Avatar did manage to break the seal and be #1 worldwide, it is still trying to chug up along the rakes to overtake Top Gun for domestically in 2022. We take a look here at the chart. Avatar: The Way of Water still sitting behind Top Gun. Top Gun at the bottom. I don't know why I said the bottom. I'm fucking all over the place this morning. Whenever I start talking late night, very quickly, the words get tongue-tied, but we're just going to keep chugging along. Top Gun at the top of the heap with $718 million. Avatar: The Way of Water making a decent effort towards it. We've said so many along the ways that I didn't think Avatar is going to be able to pass Top Gun Maverick. I still don't think that is the case, but goddamn is Avatar: The Way of Water making a plunge for it. It sits in second place right now with $658 million and counting. It continues to make at least $5 to $6 million every weekend. So if it can continue to do this week over week for another couple of weeks, it might get goddamn close. It's going to be very interesting to keep watching and seeing where it ends up. And then we take a look at our top 10 domestic for 2023. It should surprise absolutely fucking no one that Ant-Man debuts in the top spot at #1 with $104 million. Megan brings up the rear behind it at 92. I was correct in saying that Megan is not going to be our first $100 million blockbuster here domestically. It was going to be Ant-Man and the Wasp. Megan is probably going to settle somewhere, luckily, if it can make it to $95 million. Plane is in third place with $31 million. 80 for Brady in fourth with 28. Knock at the Cabin in fifth with $26 million. Missing in sixth with $19 million. Magic Mike in seventh with $14 million. House Party in eighth with $8 million. And Infinity Pool in ninth with $4 million. Hopefully next week with the release of Cocaine Bear, we will actually have a full top 10 for the domestic front here. And hopefully as the weeks go on and we get Creed coming out and 65 and Shazam and all that good stuff, we could say goodbye to movies like House Party in the top 10. Now, as always, before we continue here, we like to take a look at our fallen heroes. These are our heroes that did their time in the top 10 but have now bowed out for greener passages. We have two movies that are bidding their time goodbye here in the top 10. One of them has already said goodbye to the top 10 twice, managed to make his way back in and is getting bumped out again right now. We take a look here at the chart. Plane, after 1 week coming back into the top 10, leaves again. Can he have the magic to make a comeback again? Don't think he'll have it this time, but he was able to come back and surprise us all with one more week in the top 10. And Megan, after 6 weeks in the top 10, bows out, thus ensuring that this movie will just miss out hitting that $100 million blockbuster status. You guys did your time, you had your say, you made your money, but now it's time to bow out for greener passages. We'll see you in the physical media release, and as always, we salute you. Now, we've been watching with the re-release of Titanic, the battle that Titanic and Avatar: The Way of Water have been having. They were both sitting pretty in the 3rd and 4th spot. Titanic at 3, Avatar in 4th for the highest grossing movies of worldwide of all time. And it was neck and neck for these movies. It was going to be interesting to see with how they were making money, where it was going to end up, if they were going to continue to jockey places. But I said it was going to be safe to say that as time went on, Avatar was easily going to cruise past and was going to end up ending in the 3rd spot anyway. And I think it's safe to say that that happened, and it's going to happen. I don't see Titanic coming back and overtaking Avatar again at any point. I think it's safe to say that Avatar: The Way of Water now will firmly remain the number 3 highest grossing movie of all time, which is fucking insane to say. I can't believe that in the top 4, James Cameron's got 3 of them. It's absolutely insane. But we take a look here at the chart, and we'll take a look right in there. We're going to just look right up in the top 4. You want to look at all the rest of them, knock yourself out. But right up there in the 4th spot is Titanic now with $2.243 billion. Avatar: The Way of Water right ahead of it now with 2.244, and I think that is only going to grow as Avatar: The Way of Water continues to make money, and as each week goes on, Titanic is going to make less money. It did what Titanic was meant to do for that week. It was supposed to come out only probably for a week or two and enjoy its re-release. I think with Cocaine Bear coming out now, and then a week after that with Creed 3 and everything else, I think Titanic maybe has only one more week left here in theaters, and even then I don't see it putting up the numbers that Avatar has consistently been putting up every week, so I think we're going to only watch that grow. Avatar now only has 2 movies left in its sights if it wants to be the highest grossing movie of all time. As we see there in the 2nd spot is Avengers Endgame with 2.7, and the original Avatar at 2.9, almost $3 billion, which is fucking insane. But I think it's safe to say that we're going to watch Avatar: The Way of Water here remain in the 3rd position. Again, I've said many times, never discount James Cameron and what he can do and where it's going to go. I don't think Avatar: The Way of Water has left in it to hit 2.7 and pass Avengers Endgame. But again, you never know. Who knows what it's going to do? It's possible that it just keeps making fucking $6, $7, $10 million week after week worldwide, that it just keeps adding to this total, and it happens. And we see a world where the 2 Avatar movies are the 2 highest grossing movies of all time. Entirely possible. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's entirely possible. And this is why I love watching box office numbers, because it's going to be a hell of a ride watching to see if that becomes a reality. But a spot where Avatar still is slowly rising up the charts is when we look domestically. Avatar: The Way of Water was number 10 for the highest grossing domestic movies of all time. It managed to move up 1 spot this week, passing Jurassic World. We take a look here at this chart, and if we look, you saw it right there at the bottom, Jurassic World in the 10th spot with 653. Avatar: The Way of Water managing to take the 9th spot now with 658 million. Still ahead of it, at least domestically, is Titanic, sitting there with 672. So Avatar still has a little bit of a ways if it wants to pass that. But I think if Avatar continues to have these just fantastic legs where it's making at least $5-6 million every week, I think it's safe to say within another week or 2 or 3 that Avatar is going to pass Titanic. It's going to be interesting to see what happens come March now, because there is a lot of movies coming out in March. You got Creed 3 the first week, we got Scream and 65 after that, you got Shazam the week after that, you got John Wick the week after that, you got Dungeons and Dragons the week after that, and then capping it off in the first week of April is the Super Mario Brothers movie. So the box office is about to get very, very crowded, and shit's about to get real. These movies are about to start fighting for dominance. So it's going to be very interesting to see what Avatar is going to be able to still consistently put up with all these other movies now just flooding into screens. So it's going to be very exciting to watch. I think it's at least going to still pass Titanic. I won't go back to the charts put up on here, but I'm still pulling it up. Avengers Infinity War is right ahead of Titanic at 678. I don't know if it's going to pass that, especially as we get into these weeks where just everything's making so much money, or everything's just news coming out that's diluting the box office, but it's going to be interesting to watch, and we're going to keep charting along with it here because fucking goddamn it, does it get me fucking going. But finally, after so many weeks, we finally can add the first 2023 movie to the 2023 box office status chart. We took a look there, and right now the only one that was on it for so many weeks going through 2023 was Avatar: The Way of Water, because the way I looked at it was, even if you took away all of it, all the money that it made in 2022, and we just focused on whatever money it made in 2023, it still made Blockbuster Status double. Oh, so it just fucking made so much money to still consider itself a Blockbuster Status, even if it only came out in 2023. So I kind of just, little asterisk there, and we had Avatar: The Way of Water on there. But we look here now at the chart, adding on to it now in the second movie to be added to the 2023 Blockbuster Status chart now finally is Ant-Man and the Wasp. So it is lovely to have another movie added to the 2023 Blockbuster Status chart. Might be a little while before we see another one. Next week, you got Cocaine Bear coming out. I don't think that's even going to sniff towards 100 million. I would love it. It'd be fucking amazing because that movie looks so entertaining, but don't think it's going to happen. Creed 3 after that, I think Creed 3 has a very good chance of doing it. I think it'll end up doing 100 million domestically. I think both the first Creed and Creed 2 managed to do that. So I think it's a safe bet that Creed 3 is going to do that. Scream from last year just barely missed out on hitting 100 million. So I think maybe this new one, with how good that one was received and how excited I think people are based on the trailer from this one, I think Scream's got a good shot of doing it. Shazam's got a good shot of doing it. So we hopefully are going to be adding some titles very soon to this Blockbuster Status chart. We're going to take a look now, though, at two new charts that I'm going to add here that I want to take a look at. I really enjoy seeing week over week how much money we make, how many weeks we end up hitting over 100 million, how many weeks we end up hitting under. So I thought that as we go along for the 52 weeks in the year, that we would chart along with each week and see just how well it's doing overall, looking at a chart that looks at the overall picture instead of having to go back through each video and seeing what we did week to week. So we go now to this chart and take a look here. As we see, we get the 2023 box office chart. In the first week, we started off strong. We had a $100 million opening in the first week of January, the 104 million. We were up 2.1% over the week prior to it, the week 52 of 2022. Then we had a week 2 where we dropped under it, just under it, to 98 million. We dropped 5.1%. Week 3, we continued that decline to 70 million. We dropped 28.4%. Week 4 continued to see that decline, 62 million. We dropped 12%. Finally, in week 5, this was the release of 80 for Brady and Knock at the Cabin. We had a 15.9% bump. We jumped back up to 72 million. In week 6, we dropped hard again, 47 million. This was the weekend release of Magic Mike's Last Dance. We dropped 33.8%. That really fucked us there. But thankfully, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania came here to save us all in the beginning here of 2023. And we had our best weekend at the box office yet in 2023 with 135 million. We were plus 188%. So that goes to show you just how fantastic this weekend was for the 2023 box office. So we're going to continue to watch this chart. We're going to go to it week over week just to take a look at here, because it's just interesting to me to look at it in that kind of a chart there where we can see each week right there labeled out and see how well we did, how long we dipped for, how we're on the rise, and see if we're going to be able to continue to be on the rise, how many weekends we could hit Blockbuster Status, how many weekends we could stay over 100 million, and just see how well the 2023 box office does. Another chart we're going to look at here is another thing that I like to see is how long do movies stay in the top 10 for, is to see just how well and what movies have the best legs, what movies were the biggest hits for people here in the years. So the newest chart that I'm going to add here is what I like to call the 2023 top 10 chart riders. And this is going to be the 10 movies that we'll see throughout the year that have the best legs here in the box office in 2023. What is able to stay in the top 10 the longest? So we take a look here at this chart. If we look here right now at the bottom, we got Titanic has spent 2 weeks in the top 10. Right ahead of it, Magic Mike's Last Dance has also spent 2 weeks in the top 10. 80 for Brady has spent 3, along with Knock at the Cabin is at 3. Missing is at 5 weeks, along with Plane is also rocking 5 weeks. Plane is now dipped out of the top 10 here, so we're going to see if how far Plane will drop. Obviously, we're so early in the year. I think a lot of these movies down here towards at the bottom, we're not going to spend a lot of time here in the top 10 come the end of the year. So these movies like Plane and everything below it, they're going to enjoy their time now because we're not going to see them come the summer spend much time here in this top 10 chart. Megan is at 6 weeks. This is another one that I don't see lasting very long here as the weeks go on and we get deeper into 2023. 2023. A Man Called Otto, Puss in Boots, and Avatar: The Way of Water all holding the #1 spot right now, having been in the top 10 for 7 weeks. Avatar and Puss in Boots obviously have been in there a little bit longer if you take into account it's 2022 time in the chart. So I think both of them, Avatar is at 10 weeks, Puss in Boots is at 9 if we count 2022, but I'm strictly just looking at 2023 for here, and so far it has spent 7 weeks in the top 10 here in 2023. So we're going to keep charting along with these so we could see at the end of the year just what 10 movies from 2023 had the best legs at the box office, what hung around the longest, what people were most interested in. So this is going to be a very exciting list to keep following along with and seeing just where everything ends up. And we take a look at two last charts here. They're very in quick succession here because they both really tie in with each other. And that is, if we remember back a few weeks ago towards at the beginning of the year, I made my top 10 2023 bets for what was going to be the highest grossing movies of the year. And then I also made my Blockbuster Status list, which is what movies I think are going to hit over 100 million domestically. And so with the release of Ant-Man, two of those charts are here we can now cross off and see at least. We're going to take a look here first at the 2023 top 10 bets. If you see right now, we've got a money sign next to Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. I have it being the 8th highest grossing movie of the year when all is said and done. So I have the money sign next to it because as of right now, it is in the top 10 for 2023 worldwide. In that little fucking parentheses right there, we see though that right now Ant-Man and the Wasp is in the #3 spot. So while I was correct in guessing that Ant-Man and the Wasp was going to be one of the highest grossing movies of the year so far, I have the placement all wrong. Now obviously it is still early. It is way too early to tell where Ant-Man is going to end up. I don't think for a second that it's going to end up staying in the 3rd spot, that it's going to end up dipping, and we're just gonna have to keep charting along to see where it's going to end up. I think it's going to be a safe bet that it's going to end up further down at the bottom of the barrel. So I still think that 8th spot placement is pretty good for Ant-Man. So we're just gonna have to keep following along and seeing where it's gonna end up. But as of right now, we're looking good. One movie is in the top 10. Hopefully it manages to stay there. But now we take a look last, obviously, at the Blockbuster Status chart. This is one that I obviously have already gotten right. There's no pulling away from this one. I can't be wrong. Ant-Man could drop out of the top 10 for highest grossing worldwide of the year, and I would be fucked there. But as far as the Blockbuster Status chart goes, I got that one right. So, but we look there, and as you see, Ant-Man I have as the first one on there, obviously because it was one of my safest bets. So I knew this one we had virtually no shot of not making $100 million. So Ant-Man now has the money sign next to it. But the rest of these are all the movies that I think are either absolutely sure things that are going to make $100 million domestically, sure bets, safe bets, and our outside picks. Everything on the left and the middle from Ant-Man down to Aquaman are all my sure things. I think all those movies are going to easily make $100 million. Everything in the right one from Elemental down to Ghostbusters I think is my safe bets. And then from Book Club 2 down to Kraven Hunter are all of the outside gambles. Those are the movies that I think I could be completely fucking wrong on, but I'm taking the gamble and I'm putting them there on the list. So it's going to be interesting to see just how many of these I end up getting right by the end of the year. But that'll do it for us for all here at the charts in this week. It was a stellar weekend. I love when we get weekends like this when there's just so much good stuff to talk about in the box office. I love when we get weekends like this where the box office is healthy and it's looking good and everyone's going out and enjoying their time at the movies. I saw Titanic yesterday and it was almost sold out. That was a fucking spectacularly great setting to see a movie. Not only was I getting to see the movie 25 years after I had originally seen it, I saw it back in 1997. My mom took me with it, mostly because she needed to see it and she didn't have a babysitter, so I got to go along and see it. I was 8 years old. I was blown away by it. I saw it yesterday in the same theater that I saw it in 25 years ago. So that was really cool, like, you know, just coming back around. Full circle little moment there, right there. That was a fun experience. I still remember seeing it with my mom when I was younger, simply because it was one of those movies that was a formative movie for me. It was one of those movies that made you love movies and you were so invested. I remember being a kid. I remember the day, how cold out it was, and my mom just wanted to go, couldn't stop talking about this movie and how excited she was to go see this movie, and that made me excited because I was like, this sounds cool. And I loved watching, even at that age, I loved watching movies. Anything you could put on, I was like a sponge, just watching anything and everything that I could. So I was super excited to go see this movie too. I knew nothing about it. I had no fucking idea what we were even going to see. She was just like, I want to go see this movie. We're going to see this movie. I was like a dog. I was like, you're excited? I'm fucking excited. Let's go. When we went and saw it, and I remember sitting in that seat, just forward, just staring at the screen, just in awe, just in absolute awe. And that's one of the things that I think that's the one thing I dislike about reclining seats, is because when you're reclined back, you're kind of just like laying back. There's really no moment of just like sitting forward in your seat anymore and just being like blown away by spectacle that like you can't even sit back, you just have to sit forward. So it's one of those things that I miss, but not so much because reclining seats are just fucking incredible. But I always remembered that from when I went and saw Titanic, and it was just something that always stuck with me, still sticks with me today. I fucking love that movie. So it was great to go see this movie 25 years later in a theater that was sold out, to hear how people reacted to scenes, and actually will be able to remember it now. Because, you know, when you're a kid, you remember bits and pieces, you remember stuff that sticks with you, but you don't remember everything. So it was fun to see it now and see what people reacted to, what got laughs, what got, you know, people crying, what was getting people emotional, and getting just all of these elicits from the crowd. It's great when you can get that communal experience. It was one of the best experiences in a theater that you can get, so it was great. I also saw Ant-Man this week. Very tepid reaction in there too, so it's funny that you see so many people online talking about how great it was and how much they loved it and how funny it was. But when I saw it in theaters, and it was a sold out show that I went and saw it in, and I heard maybe like 4 full laughs from the theater as a whole, and everything else was maybe like a random chuckle or like a little tee-hee. But it's safe to say that I think these Marvel movies are just not hitting as well as they used to be. I remember going and seeing any of the movies from Phase 1 through Phase 4, and it felt, even the ones that kind of sucked, you still felt like you were bringing through a ride, just being in that audience and listening to how the audience was communing off of each other. And I just feel like, I don't know, it's not clicking, but something's not clicking. And, you know, and I'll leave my thoughts out of it, because obviously my thoughts on it don't matter. These movies still continue to do business. They still continue to do money. People love them, and I don't want to take that away from people. If you love them, I'm super happy that you could still get enjoyment out of these and that you still love them. My opinion doesn't matter in that regard. But I feel like something definitely is not clicking just based off listening and sitting in these theaters, especially at working. I'll just pop into the theater sometimes when it's a full screening just so I can hear how people are reacting. And it's definitely different than it used to be before. And up until Endgame. So it's been definitely the only one that I feel like that has gotten the elicits that were like Endgame and before was Spider-Man No Way Home, and that one obviously was a resounding success. But outside of that, I think the MCU is definitely just misfiring somewhere. Like it's like they hear it in the engine and they're trying to figure out like what in the engine is sputtering right now, and they just can't figure it out. So it's super interesting to watch all that. I'm rambling now. Everyone's just like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? We'll wrap it up now. This has been an exciting weekend here, but we'll see you for the next one next weekend. We've got the big release of Cocaine Bear, my most anticipated movie for February, so I can't wait to see this movie. I can't wait to talk about its box office numbers. Please, God, let Cocaine Bear do well next weekend. I really hope that movie would do well, and it would be an amazing movie. Not that I want Ant-Man to do bad, but it would just be an amazing success story for, you know, one of the mid-budget movies if Ant-Man had the classic terrible MCU second week drop and Cocaine Bear was just so popular that it managed to beat Ant-Man. I know that's never going to happen. That's not actually a thing that's going to happen. But God, what a juicy box office story that would be. But we'll leave it to you on that one. Until the next adventure, you have been you. I have been me. These are the movies that we love so much. And until next time, I'll see you at the movies.